I'd like to call the order the Whatcom County Council meeting for March 26, 2019. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner.
Here.
Red Brown.
Here.
Barry Buchanan.
Here.
Tyler Bird.
Here.
Todd Donovan. Carol Frazee.
Here.
Satpal Sidhu.
Here.
Would you all like to rise and join me in the flag salute? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A couple of announcements. If you'd please turn off your cell phones. And if you'll be handing out paperwork to any council members, please give one copy to the clerk for our office files. First up is the minutes. We have 3 sets of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve. Oops.
Mr. Buchanan moves to approve. Do I have a second? Ms. Brenner seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Next, we're going to have several public hearings, and the audience members who wish to address the council during a public hearing are asked to sign up at the back of the room prior to the meeting. The council chair will ask those who've signed up to form a line at the podiums. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record and optionally include city of residence. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to address the council. Council staff will keep track of time limits and inform speakers when they have 30 seconds left to conclude comments. When a large group of individuals supports the same position on an issue, the selection of 1 or 2 representatives to speak on behalf of the entire group is encouraged. When using the microphone, please speak close enough that you can hear yourself on the speakers. This will ensure that everybody else can hear your comments. At the end of these public hearings, we will have an open public session. So if you're not speaking directly to the issue at hand, please hold your comments for the open public session. First item up is an ordinance amending, it's AB 2019-153, ordinance amending Whatcom County Code 6.04, Animal Control, Chapter 6.04-020, definitions, and 6.04-031, administration and enforcement. I don't have anybody signed up. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this ordinance? I don't believe we have a present. Is there a presentation on this topic?
No.
Not this one, okay. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What is the wish of the council? Ms. Brenner moves approval, and Mr. Bird seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner.
Yes.
Red Brown.
Yes.
Barry Buchanan.
Yes.
Tyler Bird.
Yes.
Carol Frazee.
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu.
Yes.
It passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Next item up is a resolution and public hearing regarding support for a community development block grant funding application, AB 2019-158. I have a Sherry Emerson signed up for this, if you'd like to speak. Anybody else who wishes to speak to this issue, please line up at the podiums.
Thank you. My name is Sherry Emerson. I live in Bellingham, and I am the Associate Director at the Opportunity Council. I just want to follow up on the committee meetings you had this afternoon with our Executive Director, Gray Winter. We appreciate the county taking the lead in this public services grant. As you heard this afternoon, and the information in your packet points out that this is for Whatcom, Island, and San Juan counties. It provides basic services, supports basic services in those areas for very low-income families and individuals. And in Whatcom County specifically, it helps us provide services out at East Whatcom Regional Resource Center in Kendall. So we really appreciate your support and the executive support in considering this resolution tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak to this topic? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Ms. Brenner moves approval. Do I have a second? Ms. Frazee seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Next item up is a resolution requesting council authorisation of the release of covenants on the property known as the Playground Track, Bennett Hill Supplemental. This is AB 2019-151. I have nobody signed up for this. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? And I'll take a staff report first.
Yes, if I could. So Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive. Maybe before we go into the public hearing, representatives from the school district are here. Dr. Greg Baker, as well as Ron Cohen and others. This resolution is to request council's authorization to release a covenant on a playground tract out at the Alderwood School District. And so Dr. Baker will be able to walk through and give a little background on the school project, the existing Alderwood School, and the new one that they're proposing to do. Earlier today, there was some questions about the statutory authority from the county's perspective. I did reach out to Chris Quinn in the prosecuting attorney's office, and he did recognize, as the resolution is laid out and the RCWs and laws surrounding it, that the council does have authorization to dispose of this type of property or property right, the covenant underneath, through this process. And we just have to recognize that there will be a value in the transaction with the school district. The value does not have to be monetary. It doesn't have to be money. It can be a greater public good or even a public good into the future. And the school district will be here to kind of give some background on what that looks like.
As far as the value, I mean, what's the point of, is there a purpose for having to have a value attached to the transaction?
The RCW that lays out 3634-130 does recognize a consideration that's deemed adequate by the council. And so in that theory, it's in the frame of a value. And so when most people think about that, they think of money valuation. But for government agencies and the public benefit, it can also be for the public good, which is the long-term use of this property as it continues, which will be playground use in the future after the new school is constructed.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be a value that correlates to the property owners?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
So with that, we will return to the open public hearing. Mr. Baker, Dr. Baker.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having us tonight. Again, I'm Greg Baker, the Superintendent of Bellingham Public Schools. The topic tonight is around Alderwood Elementary School, one of our 14 elementary schools in the school district. Alderwood's been serving our community since 1956. And in 2017, we commissioned a facilities planning task force that was comprised of 30-plus community members, including staff, parents, that helped look at all of our facilities and recommend to me and then the school board the highest needs of our facilities and what could be put on a future bond. Alderwood Elementary was one of those facilities. The bond went to our voters in February of 2018 and was overwhelmingly supported by our community, which then moved us into the planning for a new Alderwood Elementary School. When you build a new elementary school, there's a couple ways you can go. One is you have to find a place to relocate the students for a year or two somewhere in a different part of town. That creates challenges, obvious challenges of relocation and moving to a completely different site, but sometimes that's necessary. The more preferred route is when you can build the new school on the same site as the old school, keep students and families and staff in the same area, build the new school, and then students just start to go to the new school, and then you take down the old school. Examples of that recently have been Happy Valley Elementary and most recently Seaholm High School. We're able to keep people on site. That's our preferred option with Alderwood as well. The new school will be something that for the next generation of families will be of high value. It'll be a state-of-the-art facility. It will have a beautiful gym, meeting areas, and will serve our community for decades to come. So we're excited about building the new facility, but as you start projects like that, sometimes you encounter challenges that you didn't expect, and that's what occurred here. So I'd like to ask Ron Cowan, he's our Executive Director of Capital Projects and School Facilities, to explain briefly the challenge that we've encountered in our request for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse my voice. I got the great flu last week, and I'm coming back. I feel good. I just don't sound very well. So as Dr. Baker mentioned, there's opportunities and challenges associated with building new schools. And as I go through this slideshow, I'll explain a rather unique challenge I've been managing school projects for over 30 years here in Whatcom County, and this is a new one where we think we have a school site that's ours. We can use it unencumbered, short of environmental restrictions, and then to find out we have an interesting little covenant associated with this parcel. And as you can see, I believe you have the information in your packet, but our school property is outlined here in the dark line, and then we have this unique little triangle here called the playground tract. And the covenant associated with the tract says that we can only use 20% of that area for a school building. And that creates some unique challenges as we try to employ our model of building a new school adjacent to the existing school and while the new one's being built. So what I'm going to walk through is just a little pictorial of the challenges associated with the site. So here's our property, and the playground tract is shown in the dashed line. As I move through, I'll show additional restrictions. The first will be in light gray, and then as I go to the next slide, that will turn black, and the new restriction will show in light gray. So here we go. The first restriction associated with the property is we have to build away from our property lines, so that shows the property line setbacks. Now we have an existing school. Obviously, we can't build a new school on top of the existing school, so that area is unavailable for us to use for the new school. Then, in order to keep the school in operation, we want to have a playground, hard surface and soft surface play areas, as well as creating a safety construction zone buffer so that the kids and the contractors don't get in each other's way. And I might point out, though, in each of our other projects, there's just great learning opportunities for kids as they see a new building going up. So we keep them safe, but we also provide great learning opportunities. And then, as with most properties in Whatcom County, we do run into some wetlands. So unable to build there. Associated with wetlands, there are buffers, and there's also a possibility of a stream that's located on a portion of Redwood Avenue there near the wetlands. As you can see, our building area is shrinking. We have to provide a stormwater retention pond for new stormwater regulations. When Alderwood opened in 1955, 56, there were no stormwater regulations, and of course now there are. One of the most important safety components of an elementary school site or any school site is to separate parent vehicle drop-off from school buses and keep those separate. We don't like to have kids around school buses unless they're going on the buses and vice versa, not to mention the congestion and traffic associated with parent drop-off and pickup. To build our new school, we need to make sure it can be protected, and in the event of a fire that our first responders can get there, and so we have to put a fire access road in and a related buffer, and we're continuing to get smaller and smaller. So there is a conceptual layout of the new school showing all of those areas that I just went over that would be precluded from building in, and the footprint of our new school. And as you can see, we really need to be able to build in that playground tract area. So I would greatly appreciate your consideration of releasing the covenant on this property, allowing us to provide a new elementary school and modern playgrounds, both hard surface and soft surface play area for the Alderwood community. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Mr. Sadhu, then Mr. Bird.
Oh, I think, Mr. Cohen, your presentation is so good, I don't think we have any questions. It doesn't leave much room for any other maneuvering.
I got questions. No surprise there. They're just random, though. So in the first drawing, it looked like the existing building actually lapsed into the triangle and the offset. So only 20% of that building could be in that. Is that essentially what that was? And so it doesn't look like it's too much more than that 20% is really falling into that area.
That's probably about 20% of the existing school is in that playground tract.
And then up to that top right portion, those vertical or kind of rectangular tracks, those are homes, I assume, that were built there. I don't know if you have that in, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are homes?
Those are, yeah, our property is surrounded by single-family lots to the north and to the south and east. We own all of those in the south and the east with the exception of two.
I gotta be honest, I mean, the new design with the basketball fields and everything right there, I mean, I'd rather have a house with the new design than the old house, or with the old design, so, nice job.
Ms. Brenner?
Yeah, this is just. This is a nice kind of presentation.
Yes.
I like visual stuff.
I was a teacher.
Yeah. It shows.
So I'm going to ask a question that hopefully will address one of the concerns or one of the points that Mr. Schroeder brought up. So the existing playground equipment, I assume, is getting old and tired. Would that be a fair comment?
The existing school is getting old and tired, yes.
Right, but the playground itself, what facilities? Is it just an open field? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've been down there.
Yeah, I would think so.
Okay.
The school began operation in '55. I'm sure the playground is newer than that, but yes.
Right, okay. But it's due for,
Placed.
it could be upgraded or, right. Then if you go to your final slide, if you would. So it looks like you're going to be making an investment into new infrastructure for the playground, so that you're going to be upgrading the effective quality of the playground.
That's correct.
Okay. So I would consider that to be sufficient consideration for the release of the easement, the fact that you are upgrading the playground facilities that are available. So that's my personal opinion. In fact, I'll make that as a motion if the council would, that I move that we consider the upgrade of the playground as sufficient consideration for the release of the easement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, Ms. Brenner.
Could you change that to say, I move that we do this, instead of consider?
I know, but
Just do
that's a separate resolution.
Why?
Have a hearing first.
Okay, sorry, fair
Oh,
enough.
that's
So we'll close the
right.
public, okay, fair enough.
I mean, you
So
can't
let's-
close the public hearing yet.
No, okay, so is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this topic? Ms. Frazee. Okay.
I just had a question about, has there been any feedback from the people that live around the area yet? Or haven't we brought it to them?
We had an initial meeting with our neighbors, sent out mailings to talk about the project itself and building the new school. We didn't get into specifics related to this, but there was overwhelming excitement to have a new Alderwood Elementary, especially to help us address some of the traffic issues in the area with parent drop-off and school buses. But yeah, very excited.
Further discussion? Further questions? Mr. Byrd and then Ms. Brenner.
I'm just thinking, I'm gonna go back to Barbara's comment about the presentation. You
Oh,
know,
I like
the
that.
Silver Lake trees thing, that whole gray, I mean, like, we're still getting a ton of emails about that. We put a little presentation together like that.
So Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive, I was going to leave this off, but, you know, the school district does a great job at their capital funding associated with a project like this, and I'm sure that this presentation has something to do with those dollars that are available for it. But I will consider that in the future as we look towards other projects that we're moving forward.
We should borrow their technology.
Ms. Brenner.
Well, you don't have to do it in color. I even liked it in black and white. But it looks to me like it's kind of, the new school is going to have just as much buffering for the neighbors as the old school has. I don't see any difference. Seeing heads shake up and down.
Yeah, it's more of a switch of
A
type
little
of,
different shape, but same kind of, yeah. I can't imagine anybody would be
Mr. Schroeder.
objecting to that.
In all seriousness, I think that the school district has done a very good job as it relates to the site planning and the background of this project. And to Councilman Brown's points about fair and value consideration, as the school district constructs the new playground, as you guys are recognizing, and that'll be there and available to use in non-school hours into the future for the next generation, I think there is a very, very good public benefit moving forward associated with this.
Bert?
This is going to fall to planning for the city now, right, and zoning for the city?
The project is still in the county, and we're hoping that they come in for building permits prior to annexation so that we can collect some building permit revenue associated with the school district.
How close is
Already
this
in the city.
mock-up to actual then? Do we have an idea of that, if it hasn't been through kind of permitting at this point?
It has not been approved for permitting. In fact, part of the process will be a conditional use permit, where this conceptual drawing will certainly be refined because, as you're probably well aware, once the hearing examiner approves the site plan on the conditional use permit, we have to build according to that site plan. But there's more development to be done.
That poses a question for me. Is the zoning of all the parcels you own in there, including the playground tract, is it all the same?
Off the top of my head, the answer is yes.
Okay. Just if it isn't, we probably need to address that as well.
No, the school district has contacted PDS, has gone through, I believe, some initial work as it relates to the conditional use permit. And so we'll address those through the permitting process.
All right. Any further questions? Any further, anybody else wish to speak to this issue? If there's anybody else, please come down.
Looks beautiful. I'm Jacqueline Sterna. I'm on the an ambassador for the Bellingham School Foundation. And in working with some of the other ambassadors, I've heard that they have a tremendous interest in school gardens. Will there be a school garden on the property?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
This is perfect.
Anybody else wishes to speak to this issue? Seeing none, we'll close the public session, and what's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Approval.
Second.
Approval, Mr. Sadhu, seconds. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. And then now I make my original motion that we consider the upgrading of the exchange and the upgrading of the playground equipment as sufficient consideration. That's moved by Brown, seconded by Bird. Discussion, Ms. Brenner.
Do we say consider, or do we say it is? I don't.
Accept, if you like. We accept the upgrading.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, consider sounds a little less than absolute to me.
Okay. I amend my motion to be accept.
Okay.
All right, further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Brenner.
I just wanted to quickly say, on these hearings, you guys did great. The other two, we had discussion, lengthy discussion in committee today, so it's not like we were rushing through, it's not like we were rushing through this stuff without any real consideration.
Next item up is the open public session. During the open session, audience members can speak to the council on any issue not scheduled for public hearing. Each speaker should state his or her name for the record and optionally include city of residence. Speakers will be given 3 minutes to address the council. Council staff will keep track of time limits and inform speakers when they have 30 seconds left to conclude comments. If you wish to speak in the open public session, please line up to the podiums, starting with Mr. Briggs.
Good evening, Council. It's a beautiful evening, weather-wise. So last meeting, I broached the subject about climate change and the fact that during that week we were on the verge of students around the world protesting and marching because they were concerned about their futures and everything that's having to do with climate change. Whether you followed what was going on or not, there were a minimum of 1.5 million children in over 100 countries. Primarily a lot of them in Europe that actually marched, but here in Bellingham there was quite a contingent of a few hundred that came out of Bellingham High School and some that came out of Whatcom Middle School. These young people are more than intelligent, more than aware of what's going on, and they're very angry. They're angry at all of us in our generation and the ones that may be a little bit younger than we are, because in their minds we have not done the things that were required to either stop the bad things happening with climate change, or at least start the process to mitigate it to allow them to have some kind of future. There's a movement going on around the world that you may or may not be aware of called Extinction Rebellion, which started in the UK, where there are a variety of individuals, including myself, who have been following everything having to do with climate change for more than 4 decades. And we've been politely asking people at all levels of government to do what is required to stop the fossil fuel industry, among other things. Okay, you've heard me say it before, as far as I'm concerned, the oil refineries in this county need to be shut down. We can no longer afford to be using fossil fuels, and we need to go to alternative systems. Things have reached a point now where a variety of individuals, and it could number in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions, starting on April the 15th, are going to engage in massive demonstrations of nonviolent, let me repeat that again, nonviolent civil disobedience. I may or may not participate in that. There may be other individuals in the county that are going to do that also, but we've basically had enough, especially from the federal government, regardless of which administration or political party has been in power.
30 seconds,
We've
please.
Lied to, and what the county can do is it can turn around and consider pushing the state and the federal government with concerns on behalf of all the citizens here that we need to do something now and quit horsing around. Okay, and you're going to be hearing more and more about that from me in every meeting from now through the end of this year, or as long as it takes. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak at the open public session? If so, please line up.
My name is Bob Burr, and I'm from the Barclay neighborhood, and I am also a member of the Extinction Rebellion. In the first quarter of this year, extreme weather events have shattered all previous records. We've had a deep freeze in January, which affected well over half of our country's population. Then more recently, we've seen the Midwest snowbound and then flooded. Mozambique has been devastated by a storm, and it goes on and on. The county council needs to get on board with others who have declared a climate emergency. You are well behind governmental bodies in addressing climate issues. To help you in your own resolution to declare a climate emergency, I will be providing you a copy of the resolution that was unanimously approved by the Berkeley City Council. In its background, it says, human activities have warmed the earth enough to end the 12,000-year period of climate stability that allowed agriculture and human civilization to develop. Global warming has also already set in motion catastrophic changes to the Earth system, including accelerating ice mass loss from Greenland and West Atlantic ice sheets, and the thawing of borders of the vast Arctic permafrost, which holds twice as much stored carbon as the entire atmosphere. NASA scientists have concluded that the complete collapse of the Greenland ice sheet alone could raise sea levels 23 feet, creating several billion climate refugees and global-scale catastrophe. The Arctic ice sheet did go above freezing in the winter of 2017, indicating near-term melt. With the Trump administration aggressively thwarting our ability to prevent climate catastrophe, our situation is dire. Over 19,000 scientists have signed a second warning to humanity that a great change in our stewardship of the earth and life on it is required if vast misery is to be avoided. So, once more, I'm asking you to declare a climate emergency in a
Time.
resolution. And this, I'll be glad to work with you, and this, which I hope you'll all get copies of, will provide a very thorough indication for you as to why you should do this.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak at the open public session?
Thank you.
Mr. Allisey, is there anybody else after Mr. Allisey? If not, then we'll close the session after Mr. Allisey.
No, I'm Patrick Allisey, 4825 Alderson Road. Their statements were rather mild. I could be worse than that. But I didn't come to talk about climate and economics tonight, sorry. Talk about institutions. A lot of times we think about institutions as buildings. Had to deal here with the buildings and how to improve them. Institutions are really people. They function in buildings. And I ran into a person that works for the Adult Protection Services, doing a fantastic job. And it's really hard. And I'm thinking, you know, she's very dedicated, and she's working on her job without a boss looking over her shoulder. She's doing what she believes. And, you know, there's a lot of people who work for various agencies who are like that. I just felt like I wanted to tell you about her and people like her that keep this country going. Thanks.
Thank you.
You want me to come back and talk about climate change? You know, that's the polite word. It's global warming.
Chocolates.
Okay. I didn't bring chocolate this time. We got to have some comfort someplace. Thanks.
Thank you. And that will close the open public session. Next item up is the consent agenda. Mr. Sadhu.
Sure. The first item, which is actually second item on our, because the first one was withdrawn, AB 2019-165, request authorization by the county executive to enter into a contract between Whatcom
Mr.
County.
Chair, it's a consent agenda.
Mr. Buchanan, Mr. Sadhu, it's a consent agenda.
Okay. So I propose that item 2, 3 through 6 got majority votes in the committee, and I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Was that an aye, Mr. Bird? Yeah, aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Mr. Sadhu.
So the next item is AB 2019-150, ordinance increasing Sheriff's Office petty cash fund. This received 3-0 vote in the committee, and I so move for approval.
Been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barbara Brenner,
Yes.
Red Brown.
Yes.
Barry Buchanan,
Yes.
Tyler Bird,
Yes.
Carol Frazee,
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu.
Yes.
That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused.
Okay. The next item is AB 2019-160, ordinance amending the 2019 Whatcom County budget, request number 4, in the amount of $2,260,652. Now, this was a very interesting discussion and took a lot of time in the committee. And we decided to withhold one item, which was the plantation range, and the rest of the items were passed, but the item on the on the replacement of the trailer received 2-0 vote, and Mr. Bird abstained. So that is what I have, and I so move for approval.
If I understand, also item 1 also only received 2-0, is that correct?
2-1, or no,
both of those were
2-0,
2-1.
because he abstained.
2-0 was on the total,
2-0-1.
was on the full, because
Yeah,
it
two-
failed to remove those.
Yeah.
So 2-0 is on the.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, I would appreciate pulling the, I think it was the fifth part of it or something, the one about the building for Point Roberts. I tried to find, during the time between the meeting today and this meeting, I tried to find the contract that shows why we are paying all these, why we're subsidizing to such a degree the company there, including paying for that, that new building. And I couldn't find it, and I just would like to get, I don't like, if it's true that we did that, I don't like it, and I would still support it, because I'm not going to say you can't do something you already said you're going to do, but I didn't find it in there, the thing about us subsidizing to that degree the building. So I would like to pull it to get, just to get, for somebody to show me where it is in the contract that we're going to do that.
So just procedurally, just explain, we have a motion on the floor to approve the full ordinance. What you, I think you're asking to do is a motion to amend by withdrawing number 5. Is that correct?
Okay, yes.
Then I need a second for that. Mr. Bird seconds. Discussion on the motion to amend.
I just gave my reasons.
Mr. Sidhu.
I think probably everybody read the email from County Executive Mr. Laus this afternoon on that very topic. And it is really true that if we charge them more, they're going to pass it on to the ratepayers. So I don't know what we are trying to achieve with this. We had a big discussion about the trailer and replacement, and this $85,000 is not going only for the trailer, but some other things as well. So I personally think that that we should actually approve this.
Ms. Brenner.
Well, no insult to the county executive, but he has his opinion of whether that would happen or not. We would have to pass it on to the ratepayers, or the UTC would have to, and not, not the company. And I just feel like if it's in there, it's in there. If it's not, it's not. I'm not voting for it unless I can see for myself that the county did do that. And I remember when it first came up, I don't think I voted for it, but that was for other reasons. But I just want to make sure that we're stuck with doing that. And I'm not going to support it. But you can, the executive can say what he wants, then I can say what I want. I want to see it in writing.
Mr. Sidhu.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, when you say you want to see it in writing, I didn't quite understood that, what you're trying to arrive at. Are you saying that does in the contract say that we provide them office or not? I'm just trying to see.
Yeah, but I did try to find it, and I'm not doing very well with the new computer system for the county, and I couldn't find it at all.
Okay. I think that nobody from Health Department is here to answer, or Mr. Schroeder, if he has the information, he can clarify, but otherwise, we can take that item out.
Yeah, we can bring it back in 2 weeks.
Was that you shaking your head? Okay.
Tyler Schroeder, Deputy Executive. No, I had no knowledge of the discussion about whether or not the storage building or the building that's up there in Point Roberts is in the contract for the service provider associated with it. I think that there's been more than enough discussion this afternoon, and with the executive's email that kind of walk through that more than likely what happens as it relates to these types of services, and there in Point Roberts, as council knows all too well, is that The service provider will then set a rate through the UTC, and if there's additional costs associated with operating the facility up in Point Roberts, it's very likely that that'll be passed through and recognized in the UTC rates. Be aware, council, that this includes also a fence and gate installation at the Birch Bay Linden facility, as well as been approved and moved forward by the Solid Waste Advisory Committee in 2018, passed by this council for budgeting purposes in 2018, and really is just coming back to assure the budget is in place for the project for 2019. That's the background that I know that we discussed a little bit in council. I don't know the specifics to the contract. I could look it up, but it won't be valuable for this conversation, and I don't have the specifics for Councilmember Brenner.
If I may, how long has this contract been in place, ballpark?
Less than a year, I think.
Oh, sorry, let me rephrase it. How long have we contracted to provide that space to this person or other people?
I don't know that answer. I know that Can Do has just recently contracted and it started the operations up in Point Roberts, but I don't know on this specific facility how long it's been in place.
Sure. Ms. Brenner.
Well, I appreciate what Tyler says. I want to see it in the contract, and because it was stated, at least my understanding of how it was stated today was that it's part of our contractual agreement. So, and I also disagree that that would automatically create a rate increase for the people up there. That's up to us in the UTC, and I think those guys are already making a bundle of money. So I'm surprised the UTC isn't even have little caution lights going off already.
Further discussion.
Mr. Schroeder.
Tyler Schroeder again. I just had one more point that we did discuss that Mr. Hedges this afternoon in committee did recognize that the county is with the lease with Can Do getting more money for the rental of this facility in Point Roberts than we are from other solid waste providers, whether it be Nooksack Valley or the other one associated with it. So it is a common practice for us to utilize facilities, lease out to these types of solid waste providers, and maybe not collect a total lease associated with market value. There are other revenue sources that the county collects through the solid waste, the excise tax, to be able to fund those. And really what we're talking about doing is increasing the operating costs for service providers that will more than likely just transfer that to the residents that are utilizing those facilities. And in this case, we believe it's consistent to move forward with this capital project. If there's discussion on the lease, we could have those discussions on the lease at another time, but we do know that we need to put some money into the capital facility that's up there in Point Roberts, as well as Birch Bay Linden facility. That's what these dollars do, is capital. If we want to talk about the lease, we could come back with the health department to talk about the lease and the contract associated with it to ensure that that value is appropriate.
Do you know the address of the property?
I do not.
Okay. Mr. Sadhu, then Ms. Brenner.
You know that Cedarville and Nooksack Valley places, they're not only for garbage collection. There's a lot of hazardous materials from residential and businesses, like these lighting tubes, like waste oil, like antifreeze, like other chemicals which are taken by Cedarville and Nooksack Valley to collect from public. Otherwise, they end up in the waste stream or illegal disposal. And so this has been created, if I remember correctly, probably 15 or 18 years ago, to facilitate public as well as that these hazardous materials don't end up in illegal dumping. Because if there's no place, that's what happens. So what I'm arriving at is there is a service component in addition to just dollars for dollar, like they collect garbage, we charge them lease and all this. So there is, that component is important, and I think the facility in Point Roberts would also accept these items there. So I'm not disputing about this, how much lease we should charge, but I think the facility must be brought up to date, or capital improvements must be done. We can talk about lease as a separate item, and I agree with Mr. Schroeder. Rest is up for discussion.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, that's your opinion, you're welcome to it. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. They all are required by law to do what you just said. I do have a question, though, since Tyler brought this up, for Tyler. Do we own a building that Nooksack Valley Disposal uses? I wasn't aware of that.
I don't think so.
I'm asking him.
I don't know.
I don't think we do. And I don't think we own a building that sanitary service uses. So I don't understand why, I do know that it's kind of like apples to oranges when you're comparing those. I just want to know if the county did do that in the contract. And and by the way, I support totally the Birch Bay part of it. I have no problem with that. I don't see how 2 weeks, one way or the other, is going to hurt anything, and I just would really like the answer to that.
So just a quick look at the assessed value of this. The assessed value is $195,000. If we're charging $9,000 a year, that's pretty close, just under 5% cap rate, which is pretty well close.
Assessed value, since when do you go off assessed value instead of
Wow.
appraised value or real value of a property? Assessed value.
Yeah, it's a 5-acre parcel that's a former landfill. So I'd actually say the assessed value is pretty high.
It's an operating business, you go off the cash flow.
Going to clean up the
You pay to
landfill.
get rid of
No,
that.
but you're not going to build a house on it either, so, anyway, so that's my comment. Further discussion, Mr. Bird?
Yeah, the idea that we need to look at it separately and in pieces, I think that in itself is what the bigger problem is. I mean, at this point, we've done that now several times, and what this business has, it's a for-profit business that's guaranteed a certain amount of business, where we've required every member of the community that lives in its service area to do business with it. We required them to now do business at a certain size of a garbage can on a certain frequency. We've guaranteed them at a certain, very specific price, so they have a set amount of revenue that by law they will generate, that this council has made a law for them and is actually collecting on their behalf, so they don't even have to worry about all the collection costs associated to that, like every other business would. Then we're subsidizing a piece of property for them to do their business on at an under market rate. And now we're coming in and we're building buildings for them instead of having them build their own buildings. I mean, at what point do we just take over operations of this thing and cut the $400,000 in profit that the business is doing and give that back to the taxpayers? Because we're doing all the work at this point. We're saddling all of the costs, we're saddling all of the risk, and the business is taking home the profit. Why is there a business here? Doing this in pieces has made a really sweet deal for one business owner and guaranteed them X amount of revenue, and it's not like anything else you would see anywhere else. I don't understand this program.
So, Ms. Brennan, just before you start, I do need a little clarity as to what the motion is. Is the motion to hold this for 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Is that?
My motion is to hold this for 2 weeks so I can see where that is in the contract.
Okay, and is that you're accepting, that's your understanding of the motion, Mr. Bird? You seconded it?
No, I understand her emotion. I think it should be thrown out altogether.
I'm sure you do,
but I'm okay with her emotion.
Okay, just as long as I got agreement between you on the motion. As long as I have agreement between the two of you on the motion as the maker and the seconder, Ms. Brenner.
Okay, and I want to finish what I was going to say.
Please.
In response to what Councilmember Sadoo said about how good this is, I don't know anywhere that we are forcing people to take the amount of garbage, or forcing people to produce the amount of garbage on the frequency that we're doing in Point Roberts. It flies in the face of our whole thing about reduce, reuse, recycle. And that's what got me all along with the whole contract to begin with. And that's why I just want some clarity on if this was also in there. But this is not necessarily more environmental. All those facilities in the county are required to take those kinds of waste, and we have places that take them outside of those facilities, those kinds of hazardous waste in the county. But we also have been supposedly for years committed to reducing the garbage, increasing it by the amount it's been increased, and requiring that people do this twice a week. Most of those cottages and most of those houses up there are tiny little places with very few people, most of whom are not even there year-round, or maybe not even half of the year. And it doesn't make sense to me that we've even got the formula that we've got to begin with. I just want to get an answer on that thing before I vote one way or another on the building.
Further discussion on the motion to amend the main motion, and the specific amendment is to hold the appropriation of $85,000 to fund the solid waste facilities improvements. Further discussion on the motion to amend? Seeing none, Ms. Madam Clerk.
What have we done?
If this piece passes, it's going to have to come back in a different ordinance. You can't hold part of an ordinance and then pass the rest of it. So the motion, if you want to hold this, you need to hold the entire ordinance.
I think we should. I don't think 2 weeks is going to make it.
You sure?
Yeah, I know.
And what if we delete it? What if we just delete an item?
Someone could make a motion to remove this piece completely, but if you want to have it come back to you, it would still need to come back in another ordinance at a future date.
But if we made a motion to remove it, we can vote on the rest of the ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And
just a second. Okay, it's just, okay, so then we would have to rely on the administration to bring it back to us. Correct, okay. All right. Mr. Sadhu and Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, but that's not the only one. We have another one to discuss that. Right. That is the number 8. It was just in the committee, we said, okay, but this is the time now to talk about that as well.
Right, and we have to do these sequentially. So
yeah.
I'm going to ask the maker of the motion, do you want to amend your motion to remove this from the ordinance because we can't hold it? If we hold it...
Okay, yes. What is it? I move, get rid of the one I made. I move to pull this one item.
So your motion is to remove item 5, appropriation of $85,000 to fund the solid waste facilities improvement. Can we avoid the side conversations, please? Mr. Bird, do you wish to second that? Okay. So it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion on the motion to remove this item. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
No.
No. Say no after he's asked.
What's your vote, Mr.?
I voted aye.
So your motion, you're moving, so we've got 3 yeses, correct? Who's the yeses? You, and and then there was 3 noes, so that motion fails. Next item up, who else? What was the next amendment someone wanted to make? I understand there was at least one more.
Then
No, we were
number
debating
8.
Whether I thought 8 we pulled in committee.
We still, yeah, but
Pull in the committee.
You can recommend
it still has to
it.
come back here to the main body. So
What was
if you
it?
wish to pull it from this, you have to make a motion to remove it from the ordinance. What, are you making that motion?
Oh, this is Councilmember Frazie's item.
Oh,
So that was taken out.
Are you making that motion?
Number 8.
I need someone to make a motion.
Number 8.
I need clarity. I took it out this morning.
But you can't do, you
Took
just
it
can
out.
recommend.
You took it out in committee.
Oh, so I have
It
to take
still
it out
comes
again.
back to the full committee. Sorry, still comes back to the full council with a recommendation to remove it.
Anyway,
But it's not.
Okay.
we can listen to the tape.
So I can make my motion now?
Your motion, if you wish to remove it, your motion would have to be to remove it from the ordinance and then get a second.
Okay. Let me find this here. So I'd like to make a motion
Yes.
to remove, can I go?
Please.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to remove from the ordinance number 2701, the plantation indoor range HVAC, and roof replacement.
Okay. There's a motion to remove. Do I have a second?
My second for discussion.
Mr. Bird seconds. Mr. Bird, Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, I would be fine with this if we knew we actually have access to a range that has the distance that this one has. There is no other range in Whatcom County that does. Now, the Custer Gun Club has property. I know they did have the ability before, but they ran into a lot of problems, and this is my recollection from what I heard, and couldn't get permits, and I think they've already decided to use that property for something else, but I'm not sure. So I don't want to say no on this right now. I would just like to, I would like to see removed for 2 weeks, so I can get the answers to that.
The only procedural option for us is to vote to remove it.
Right, but we can ask the
But they bring
executive
it
to
back in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay.
in another ordinance,
All right.
correct? So we can remove it from this one and ask that it be brought back in a future ordinance.
Or we can ask, and we just rely on
gonna
the fact
say
that
no.
they'll. So.
Well, I think
Given
they
that they
want to
want
bring
it,
it
I'm
back
sure
in
they'll
2
bring it
weeks.
back.
It came from them to begin with.
Okay. Mr. Sadhu, you had your hand up.
My turn?
Yes.
Okay. As I was driving from Linden to this council's meeting, and I was thinking about these two things, the Point Roberts solid waste can do and this. It was very interesting that in the same meeting, we had two arguments. The first argument was why we are having a private company making profit, we should limit their profit, and we should control them. Actually, that is a regulated industry where there's a lot more regulations on this. In the same breath, we had a meeting that we have a facility which is actually a public service facility, and we want to get rid of it, give it to the private person, and the private person can set any rate, like our police, sheriffs and Bellingham police goes there, and they may charge them, say, for example, $100, and we give it to the private person, we are so badly wanting to get rid of that, and they can charge you $250. And we are okay with that. We are saying, this is too much for us to run the facility. At the same time, we just heard the argument, why don't we take over the garbage collection in Point Roberts in our own hands, and we provide the service and save $400,000. I was totally ironic. I was just laughing to myself that how do you justify one and the other, and the one we are trying to take away is actually very heavily regulated private business. So I just wanted to share that.
Mrs. Frazier, then Ms. Brenner.
I think Point Roberts is a unique situation in that it's a unique place, like no other place in the world, and we do need to make it where people can have garbage disposal. So that's the difference.
Yes.
And like I said in the meeting this morning, that the gun range, plantation gun range, rifle range has lost money every year for at least 6 years that I went back, and over the last 5 years has lost $231,950. And there are, like I said, other gun ranges, and the long range, that's what I had a question with. With the long range, do the other places, the other gun ranges, can you shoot a regular, like, 30-30? The range, like what is it a high-powered one? That's the range that we need different, that's what we have at Plantation? Or is it a regular rifle 30-30? Do you?
Yeah,
It's for hunting, I know that.
Right, but is it can you do regular hunting at the other places?
It doesn't have as long a range.
So please wait to be recognized.
Okay,
Ms.
sorry.
Brenner, then Mr. Sadhu, then Mr. Bird.
But let Mr.
You can answer her question real quick.
Well, yeah, and I could too,
Want an
but
answer?
Yeah, I do want to answer.
Yeah, it's-
Mike can answer it.
The plantation goes out there with 300 yards. It's a distance. It's not a caliber of a rifle or a type of rifle.
Has nothing
it's
to do
how
with the
far
caliber.
you shoot. And so, for example, if an officer needs to make a long distance shot, they need to be able to practice for 300 yards or further so that they know that they have some accuracy in that shot. Out at Custer, you don't have the ability to shoot that far. And so Plantation is the only place north of Seattle that I'm aware of that has a range at that distance. So
What's
it's
the
not
distance, what's the difference in distance?
I think it's 100 yards. It might be 150, but I think it's 100 yards right now.
Mike
So
knows,
200
and it's
is,
way more
I
than
believe,
the others.
Custer's distance. And it's 300 yards, yeah.
Come on, one of you guys.
So
I'm next,
Oh,
but we're waiting for him.
300 yards.
It is 300, yeah.
Yes. Which is, as Councilmember Brenner pointed out, is something, if you're hunting or you're doing competition or whatever, you need that distance. The request here, however, in the ordinance, is whether or not you want to have an indoor range. And that is for both handguns and small bore 22s and that.
Ms. Brennan, then Mr. Sadhu.
Yeah, well, I just want to give the other side of you gave one side of the Point Roberts gun range thing. I want to give the other side. The other side is Point Roberts, they're not some private company. It's a utility. They're a monopoly. There's no one allowed to compete with them once they get the area. And so it's not like a regular, for-profit business that we talk about. We'd like to have for-profits be able to compete more. They can't. There's no competition there. I'm not going to vote against this unless someone else can provide that distance. Because, yeah, you could still have the distance, but without having both, you're going to lose probably the more ability to make the money to keep the thing going. Even though you're not going to make any money, you're going to lose less money with the building than you'd lose without it. Is that a better way to say it? Yeah. So I'm not going to vote against this unless I can find out another facility can expand. And I don't think Custer can anymore, but I don't know.
Mr. Sadhu.
Just to address what Ms. Frazee has brought up is losing $230,000 in 5 years. That's like $40,000 a year, right? Divide by 5. Okay. What I'm saying is that what do we do about youth who want to learn how to shoot and safety training for the firearms? Like I said before, it's a service. So we are providing a service where our sheriff's department can go and get the training at a reduced rate, and our youth can come and use it for free. So if we were a private company, I think we will be making $250,000, but we are not a for-profit government that everything we do, we have to see how much money we made at the end of the day. Yes, we should be using taxpayer dollar very responsibly. I totally see that. But at the same time, that there is no other service, like when this thing was built or done, there were no other facilities for the law enforcement people to do that. And it's perpetuating because we had a lease and we are working with that. But just because we are losing money is not, to me, a reasonable argument. Because if we say, if we don't have facility and the other people charge, say, twice as much in the county, and a youth group comes to us, to the county, that we want to train 200 kids gun safety and how to shoot, how to learn, or there are kids who want to go into Olympics and they want to go have a shooting range. Then they come to us for subsidizing and we'll probably give them money. Not looking at it, what profit did we make? So I think we should, there are more facets. I'm not saying what I'm saying is the only way to look at, and I understand your side of the argument. But this is not a binary thing. We didn't make money, so it's a bad facility. I think we need to look at all the sides of this thing. And is there in near future somebody who can take up that function in our community? I don't think nobody is ready. Maybe a year or two from now, yes. So that's what my argument is.
Ms. Froese.
First.
Sorry. Sorry, Mr. Bird. Mr. Bird, please, may we have the benefit of your comments?
I think that we need a little more clarity maybe on the facts here, because they're maybe not being construed quite correctly. When it comes to children and gun safety, Custer actually has a number of shooting teams, and those shooting teams are actually some of the best in the country. Our shooting team out at the Custer, young students and young gentlemen and women, has actually beat some of the military teams across the country. We have some of the top shooters in the world that live out here that teach kids how to shoot. Those kids are coming in and learning those shooting programs. In addition to that, when I took my hunter safety course, I didn't go to Plantation. It's a beautiful range, but I actually did my hunter safety course at Linden High School. My mother, Custer, did her handgun training course. I have a brother who did his hunting course at a Ferndale school. Plantation is a great course, but not even our local sheriff's department uses it primarily. They use Custer as their primary range. Now, I am by no means for shutting down Plantation. I am 100% though in support of transferring ownership and operations to a nonprofit that wants to maintain that or take that over, that sees that as something that would be a part of their mission, because I don't necessarily believe that that's a place for us as government to be spending taxpayer dollars and losing revenue, but it is some place that a nonprofit can step in, and it makes a lot of sense traditionally. We can talk about this and doing it in 10 years, or we can talk about it now before we do a major expense and a large investment. What I do know in this short year on the council is that every time we do something like this, we later use it as a reason to be able to continue to do the same thing. And so we always look back and say, well, just like with approving this budget item for the sanitation, we approved it last year, so we should approve it again. And before that, we had approved something else, and there was a reason that we then had to approve it last year. I mean, every time we run into this, we kick it down the road and say, well, we're going to do it because we did it before, and if we want to change it, we'll look at it later. I don't think that's the case. We have a big expense. Let's take the time. Let's consider it now. Let's look at the options. Let's take the information in, make an educated decision based on all of the information that we get, and then move forward. But the rest of this is just kind of pointless to me, I guess. I mean, I don't understand why we don't move forward with more information, so.
Mrs. Sadhu.
I think that the same thing happened at the budget time as well. Like I said earlier in the day, that we should give that direction to the administration, that a clear way. The council would like to see an alternate to that, because we are not very clear either. You know, if we want to see that something like this may take 1, 2, maybe 5 years to sell it or find a nonprofit, or this is not going to happen tomorrow. So if we as a council want to do that, then we should clearly state that our intention is within 5 years, we do not want to own this rifle range. And please find the alternates or go do the study or whatever it takes, then we should do that. And then, you know, that is the only way. We can't just say that when the budget or any expense item comes, we just regurgitate a lot of emotional things. And I'm not really faulting you on that it could be run with nonprofit and serve the same purpose. I'm not saying the county should own it. But we must make a clear decision and a direction to the administration. This is the intention. You got 2 years, go do it, and then we'll make a decision. And maybe there is a new council at that time. So we've gone through this several times.
Ms. Froese, my apologies, you're actually next. So
Okay.
Ms. Froese, then Ms. Brenner.
Okay, so what you're saying is, like, I don't feel like we should keep putting money into this even though we have a grant to go forward. And also with the indoor range, isn't there a lot of asbestos? Will that be taken care of when they redo the ventilation and the roof? Will that be taken care of?
Chris Thompson, Parks Operation Manager, Whatcom County Parks. The roof does have about 20% of the roof surfacing has asbestos in it that would be abated if we replace the roof.
And that's within that expense?
Correct.
Okay. With that, also with an indoor range, when any kind of competition, whether it's the Olympics or whether it's police under stress, they're not going to be in a highly ventilated, heated area when they're ready to shoot at someone. That's just, so only one other county in Washington has a gun range, is the owner of one, and we're the other one.
Brenna, and then Ms. Brenna, and Mr. Sadhu.
Well, I just wanted to comment, yeah, this stuff was brought up at budget time, but it's always been the understanding that we get a second bite at the apple when it's the individual projects themselves. And one of the problems at budget time is we get the budget, draft budget on the very last day we can get it. It's an enormous document, and we've got, I want to say, 6 weeks at the most, or something like that. We don't have very long to go through it, and I shouldn't say I don't know what other people think, but I get the feeling that sometimes people will allow something to be in the budget because they think they can get more in depth into it when it comes to us specifically. Yeah.
Mr. Sadhu.
I was going to say that that if we decide that nonprofit should take over or something, and this facility is present in one or the other shape, then if we replace the roof and everything, it's not that money wasted. Because if we don't do that, and to attract a new nonprofit and say, we're going to give you this range, but by the way, they're going to be $1 million just to change the roof and all this, and they may not be able to get the grants which we are able to get. It's very easy to say that $250,000, okay, we are spending $500 from our pocket to save that $250, take advantage of that $250. We can say, let's just return the grant and not do the roof. Understandable. But then we have a prospector who, nonprofit especially, who want to raise funds, and we say, by the way, there's $1 million, and they cannot get that grant which we can get. So I think we should look from that perspective as well, that whatever decision we make.
Mr. Bird.
If you recall committee meeting, I did specifically ask for that information on whether we would have to pay her back or not. So again, it's getting all the information together and making an educated decision when we have the information together. Hence the reason for withdrawing this and putting it on hold so we can have time to have that information.
So, Mr. McFarlane, I have a couple of questions.
I still want to talk about it. Sorry. When you say that want information, would somebody take responsibility to write up 5 things which you really, like it's a very generic, nebulous thing, we want information? I think as a council, we must decide that we have the intention to move over this facility to nonprofit. We need to know these 5 things. Then only, we're not really very clear what we are looking from them. So to me, it will be better decision that I'm not against, if you want to hold it for another 3 months, it's not going to make a big difference that this 3 months is going to make or break the facility. But what we are asking, we must let them know what we are asking, what our intentions are. Then go ahead and do that.
Mr. Bird,
who's going to take that responsibility?
Councilmember, I feel like you weren't paying attention in earlier council meetings when we talked about this. I actually have the list, and I believe I asked you very specifically for these things. Could we know if the lease is transferable? Could we know if we could sublease the property? Can we know if the grant itself could be pulled back if we transfer the property to a nonprofit after we've made the investment? And can we advertise this to the other ownership or gun profit or nonprofit organizations that in the county and see if they have interest? So there was the 4 things I asked for earlier. I have them written down.
You're very clear right now.
I was clear earlier.
At least maybe it is my fault, but it wasn't clear in the committee meeting what we are asking.
Okay.
Ms. Brenner, and then I'd like to add.
I thought it was extremely clear in committee, and I'm being really clear. I'm talking about 2 weeks, bring it back, and give me time to find out the answers that I want to find out about whether the Custer Gun Club can expand to that, or if they've already changed their plans. That's what I want to do. He's got his reasons. He's been very specific about them. I've got my reasons. I've been very specific. Councilmember Frazee, I think, has been very specific too. So I'm not sure how to reword anything. I think we've said it.
So I would like to add one other item to Mr. Bird's list, which is the cost for disengagement. So at the end of the lease, what is their obligation to clean up or remove the buildings or lead abatement or whatever? So further discussion on this topic.
What's the motion again?
The motion was to remove item 8 to appropriate 836,000 in Parks Fund to fund plantation indoor range HVAC and roof replacement project.
Just for clarity, your item would only be in case that we together, or otherwise it'd be a contractual negotiation between us and whoever property or the operations to.
Well, I just want to understand what our contractual obligation is. At some point, we have to assume that at some point, because, for example, it's a 30-year lease, if I remember correctly. So the assumption is at the end of the lease, there are some obligations. So, and I would assume that we don't have the right to unilaterally, maybe this is item 6, do we have the right to unilaterally break the lease early? Or does the lease, are we obligated for the full 30 years? So, Mr. Sadhu.
In addition to that removal of asbestos, we built the facility, county built the facility. So you cannot just pass on to the next owner. You declare that it has asbestos in there.
Yeah.
And that will be a
as is.
liability. Either we pass on to them, they will want compensation, or we say we will remove it and before you give it to you. So please include that as well.
Ms. Brenner.
I think we have the option of saying as is, and they will know exactly, we'd have to tell them anything we know, and we tell them. But I'm not there yet. I just want to get the answer to my one question.
Further discussion on the motion to remove this item from the ordinance for the amendment to the county budget. Seeing none, all in favour of removing this item, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously with Mr. 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Is there any other amendments to this ordinance?
Well, not another, I'm not going to support it because of the other thing, but, which you could have easily removed and brought it back in 2 weeks too.
Okay. If there's no other motions to amend, would the clerk please call the roll?
Barry Buchanan?
Yes.
Tyler Bird?
No.
Carol Frazee?
Yes.
Hold on. This is for the amendment?
No, no.
This is
Or
for
this is
the
the whole
full-
thing?
this is-
That's
this
what I
is
thought. Okay, I am a no.
This is for the entire
I'm good,
ordinance.
I'm good.
This
I'm
is
good.
for the amended ordinance. Right.
Carol Frazee?
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu?
Yes.
Barbara Brenner?
No.
Red Brown?
Yes. That passes 4-2 with Brenner and Bird opposed and Donovan excused.
Okay. The next item is AB 2019-156, ordinance to repeal ordinance 2019-017. This received 3-0 vote in the committees. I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Tyler Bird? Carol Frazee?
Yes.
Satpal Sidhu? Yes. Barbara Brenner?
Yes.
Red Brown?
Yes.
Barry Buchanan?
Yes.
Okay. The next item is AB 2019-161, a resolution celebrating April as Month of Sikh Awareness and Appreciation in Whatcom County. And this received 3-0 vote in the committee. I so move for approval.
It's been moved for approval. Any discussion? Ms. Frazee.
I just want to say I will support any celebration that we have for the Sikh community. Due to my comments on March 12th in the Finance and Administration Services Committee. I'm going to abstain from this.
Further discussion? I'm also likely to abstain. I have great respect for the Sikh community. I have great respect for all the religious communities, particularly the devotion to community itself. But in my 5 years on the council, we have not chosen to acknowledge one community or one religion over another that I'm aware of, and I'm reluctant to start a process of doing so. Ms. Brenner.
Yeah, but the way I read it, it's an awareness of an ethnic group, and I think to me, that's educational. I don't see that we're putting any religion before any other religion. And if I thought that, I wouldn't support it, and I feel fine with it the way it is.
Mr. Sadhu.
Yeah, I think that I did provide resolutions passed in the U.S. Congress, in the legislature of Delaware and New Jersey and California and many other cities. And I respect how you feel about it or how you understand about it. It is actually about the identity, not the religion. And they have been mistaken, like I said last time, that a guy walks up to a gas station in Arizona and a Sikh person comes out to pump the gas, didn't ask any question, shot him 3 times and left. And there have been incidents in Whatcom County. I don't want to bring negativity to it. The whole purpose of this thing is make people aware. Like we have done several events, like turban tying event at Whatcom Community College, at Western Washington University, and at Bellingham Technical College more than 5-6 times. That's not about celebrating Sikh religion. It was about people, to make people aware. And this whole campaign nationwide is to make aware. I think you remember what happened in Wisconsin. Guy walks into the temple and shoots because he thinks whatever he thinks. This is actually an effort, a nationwide effort, to bring attention because of the unique identity of these people. That's all it is. So I think it is not really true that this is about a religion, but I respect how you feel about it, and I'm okay with that, how you feel. But it is not about that.
Ms. Froese.
And like I said, on the 12th, like Turban Awareness Day, and people, like I said, my husband did that at Whatcom Community College and wore the turban, and things like that, I totally support. I think it's important to people to be in the shoes of others.
And I would add that I think the other situations where an event has occurred and the community's been asked to express its rejection of negative behaviour and to reinforce its belief that any particular ethnic group is a member of the community. I think that's quite appropriate to do that in the light of a particular event. I'm not aware that we've done a Jewish Awareness Day or a Christian Awareness Day or a Buddhist Awareness Day or a Seventh-day Adventist or a Mormon or whatever the case may be. I'm not aware that the county's ever done that, and that's my only point.
Yeah, can I?
Stu?
I think that the whole point is that if you look at Christianity or Christian people or Jewish people, they are well known. The whole point is that this is a new identity which is unknown. That's why this is needed. It's not needed that we are recognizing why we haven't recognized Jewish people. That's not the point here. The point here is this is a different and has been mistaken in many times. Like, if I gather from your remarks that if we draw another whereas that there was a shooting in Wisconsin, if I add another whereas there was a shooting in Arizona, if I add that there was this incident in Whatcom County, then suddenly it is okay. I just don't get that. That's what you're saying. If it is about an incident, there are incidents, but that's a negativity. That's not what I want to, like, the whole community don't want to project to the negativity of this thing, but the positivity of this thing. And that's why this is about the awareness. It is not about recognizing this as anything special. It's creating awareness. So I don't see the strength of your argument that if I put negative things in there, 5 different incidents, then suddenly it becomes okay to pass the resolution. At least that's how I understand.
Yeah, Ms. Brenner, and then I'll make.
Well, you know, what you said was the thing that kind of made it sound more negative by talking about those incidents.
I know.
And those incidents had to do with the religion. These are people who just didn't understand anything, and they thought, well, you know, they were you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about
That's why I wish you hadn't said those. I support this, and I support the whole idea of understanding the Sikhs better. I think it's a wonderful idea. But this thing about bringing up incidents, stop it.
Ms. Frazee.
So, like I said before, on March 12th, if we said identity, like if we said Eastern Indian, or if we said Native American, or we said Asian, I would be great with that. But because it's tied to a religion, even though it is an identity instead, it's like being Jewish, and you might not be a practicing Jewish person, but it's still a religion. So, I mean, that's how I'm seeing it, but I don't. And the bottom line is the discrimination that's occurring for Sikhs, for Muslims, and they're putting people in one clump and discriminating, and that's what we have to address.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say that was my intent. I did send an email to everybody that please suggest edits to this thing. I mean, I respect that, and this may be the point, this may be the venue to discuss that. I'm not saying that pass it the way it is written. I was the first one to say that please read it over and make suggestions and send it to Dana, that change this line, add this line, subtract this word, so that we can make it that it is acceptable to the citizens of this county and to the council. There's never been a suggestion that this is it, take it or leave it. But I didn't hear anything. But this is a good point that we can even do it now. I'm okay to that. I'm totally open to make any changes to any words if you have any suggestion.
Ms. Frazee.
On our March 12th committee meeting, I did suggest those things. I thought they were heard. I did not come back with the written suggestions, but during that meeting, I said the exact same thing. Like, if it was an identity, I would support it. If it was Asian, East Indian, if it was Native American, I said those things. But because there was a religion attached to it, that's where I thought if we crossed that line, then what do we do with other religions?
May
I suggest, yes, you want to make any friendly amendments? I will be totally open for that.
And just before you respond, I share your concerns, Ms. Frazee. It's not I'm very supportive of the Sikh community. I've enjoyed very good relations with them. I really enjoy spending time. I think they have fine members of the community. But it is the introduction of the religious component in a government function, which is what is concerning me. I mean, legitimately, if we are to get involved in recognising the importance of certain religious observances or calendars and so forth, we probably should also do, say Ash Wednesday or Christmas or Mawlid al-Nabi, which is Islamic, Diwali, which is Hindu, Passover. I could go on, but the point is there is a long list, and there are many religions in this community that are actually smaller than the Sikh religion, which I think, if you remember correctly, you said is the 5th largest organized religion in the world. It's actually larger than Judaism. So, for example, I have a friend who's Zoroastrian, right? So I think there's 100,000 of them, if I remember correctly. So that's my concern. It's a religious component.
All I'm saying is that actually I was very open to suggestions that make those changes.
So if is there a motion to amend?
Yeah.
I don't see it. Well,
He made a motion.
No. Well, I'm asking if there is a motion to amend that needs to be made, because I don't have anything other than the main motion.
I'll make a motion to amend that whatever Ms. Frazee has said and you have said, make it, because I'd rather have your words in there rather than mine, because you have certain feelings about the resolution that it does not sit well with you. So I would say that you should make that I want to amend it like the here, and then you're okay with that. I'm totally okay with that.
So from a procedural perspective, Madam Clerk, if obviously we can't communicate back and forth with Mr. Sidhu privately because we've now exceeded a quorum on this issue.
Yeah, you can if there's less than a quorum.
No, because it's already become a matter discussed within the quorum.
It's a quorum of the council.
Yes, no, I understand that.
So three different people can, you and whoever wants to can talk to him about
We
it.
could have before it had come to the body.
No, you still can.
Yeah, I don't know what I can.
As long as
Barbara's
there are not
Yeah.
2 members of Finance Committee, since this item was scheduled for Finance Committee.
Okay. All right. I've always understood it that once it has come before the full council, no, okay,
No.
all right, fine. Because the other thing I was going to suggest is that if it's okay, if you believe it's okay, is we could send our comments to you and not communicate directly with Mr.
That's
Sidhu.
totally fine with me.
That's exactly what I suggested
All right.
too, that send it to Dana, whatever you are, and Dana can take those edits and make it into a resolution. I'm totally okay with that.
Okay, so then I need a motion from you to hold this in committee.
I agree with that.
Or hold it.
Make
You
the
make a
motion.
motion to hold it.
I will make a motion that we should hold it for next committee meeting, and please
No,
suggest the
Next
amendment,
council meeting. I don't think it needs.
next council meeting,
Yeah, it doesn't.
and make the suggestions directly to Dana.
Second.
All right, motion and second, discussion. Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0, and the motion was to hold. Next item up, Mr. Sidhu.
The next item is AB 2019-191, resolution supporting of retaining the Alaska Marine Highway system between Bellingham and Alaska destinations. I did send an email today afternoon citing the 2 reports, one by a consultant for Alaska Marine Highway, and one is by the Port of Bellingham. They are kind of dated a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, because the question was asked that what is the financial impact of Alaska Highway, Ferry Highway being eliminated from here? How much, there are certain things which have been talked about in public, about 32 jobs and, about I have written all the whereases, described everything. So it's open for discussion.
Ms. Brenner.
Well, I didn't see your email before I left, so it's probably there. But I already support it. Having lived in Alaska,
Yep.
I understand, and I've taken the ferry quite a few times. But I do think this is really important for Alaskans as well as people in Bellingham.
So I contacted Mr. Goldberg after the committee meeting, and he is committed to sending us a copy of their communications with the Alaska and also Bellingham. So, so hopefully we'll get those in the next couple of days, and I'll share those.
So we're going to hold that?
No, we can approve the resolution. The resolution says the chair of the council will write a letter to the Alaska governor and the legislature leaders saying that we would like you to retain this service.
Okay.
Yeah, or we support this service.
Is the expectation that letter comes back to the council for approval before?
I think council can decide that. I'm okay with you writing the letter.
I just
If
need,
he is asking my opinion.
Hold it.
I just need clarity for the motion, that's
Yes.
all I'm asking you.
Yes.
So your motion is,
Okay, my motion is that it should be brought to the council so that the council can approve the letter.
okay, all right. And who's?
Second.
Seconded, okay, fine. Further discussion, Ms. Brenner?
I do support it, but don't we just hold something like that instead of approve it and then approve it again?
If you were to hold the resolution,
Yeah,
and the
then,
resolution states after passage of the resolution that
Yes.
you're going to have a letter, I mean, unless you want to do them both on the same night.
So what do we want to do?
You can pass the resolution, and then we'll bring back the letter in 2 weeks for approval
Yep.
and send it.
Even if they're, okay, fine. Never mind.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Next item up is request approval to change the start time of health board meetings to 10 a.m. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Mr. Donovan, I'm sorry,
Second.
Mr. Buchanan moves approval. Mr. Sadoo seconds. Ms. Brenner? Go ahead.
Why?
I can answer that.
Okay, somebody answer it.
I suggested this at one of our public health advisory boards because the last 3 health board meetings, we have gone up until 5 minutes to 12, and they still had things on their agenda.
Okay,
And I think the idea is to make sure that we get out of here by 12,
okay.
just moving it back a half an hour. We can always stop early, but that was where that came from.
Ms. Brenner?
Well, I'm not crazy about it, but you convinced me.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. Next item up is a resolution supporting House Bill 1023, allowing certain adult family homes to increase bed capacity from 6 to 8, AB 2019-199, and that's in the lime green packet. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Second.
Ms. Brenner moves approval. Mr. Buchanan, I don't know why I keep wanting to call you Mr. Donovan. Mr. Buchanan seconds. Any discussion? Ms. Brenner?
I don't know what took them so long to even propose this. It should have been done a long time ago. Oh, this would be, it's at the state level, it's being discussed, and there's been heavy support for it to increase the amount of beds allowed in an adult family home from 6 to 8. I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes 6-0 with Mr. Donovan excused. All right. Introduction items. Do I have a motion to approve?
I move approval.
Second.
And that includes, for the record, that includes the additional salmon item number 4, and an additional item on the green packet as well, number 5.
Wait, what do you have for number 5?
Ordinance amending Whatcom County Code, Section 1.14, correcting certain precinct boundary lines and precinct maps, second amendment.
That was my number 4. So what do you?
Here's
I
4.
think the numbers are incorrect on the green
Yeah,
copy.
they are. Just remember, all the colored stuff is on there, too.
Discussion.
Yes.
All right, just this new number 4 on the green packet, didn't we just do this? The
Yeah.
auditor, or what?
We did a version of it. I think this was something that they didn't catch.
We had,
That's what it looks
we
like
had
to me.
2 things in there, and now there's just one again.
These are-
This is what was original, and I gave my reasons why I didn't support it originally, and I would have supported what we decided, and now it's back to original. Yeah, I'm gonna,
I think, no, I think you're talking about different items.
Yeah.
He's
Talking
talking
about
about
the
I'm talking about the
precinct
precinct.
maps.
oh, precincts, I thought you were talking about business, it's
No, no,
4
no.
on here is business and.
There was a couple of annexations, I believe, up in Linden,
Yeah.
and they didn't catch those before they gave us the last maps.
Okay.
That, and there was too many voters in one precinct.
Yeah, and too many number fours. What can I say?
Further discussion on the introduction items? Seeing none, all in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that passes 6-0 with Mr Donovan excused. Committee reports, finance.
All right, we had a brief report from the county executive, and he listed a couple of, one of the item of concern was that the triage center, it will take $600,000 of the state money for the operations, and he was concerned about that they are about to release the construction contracts, and his concern is that 60 to 70% of the operational money comes from Medicare and Medicaid, and he just wanted to alert us, the council, that it could be an issue we will be facing. The second thing was that jail contract for the doors, $26,000 per door, is coming to the council for approval, and he will be bringing it in next couple of weeks or a month. And county executive said that Cascadia law contract, he signed it, and that should be coming for approval, and it's up to the council to manage that and get the information. That was on that report, and then we had a very healthy discussion on Point Roberts Solid Waste Advisory Committee and the Plantation Rifle Range. And we have had another discussion on that today, so that was it.
Parks, Public Works on Health.
Can I take back for a second?
Sure.
There were two more items I forgot.
Yeah,
One
small business.
One was the presentation by SBDC. CJ brought a very, I think, informative report. And I think the highlight was that 99% of the businesses with the old definition of 500 or less are small businesses in Whatcom County, and 82% of the jobs in Whatcom County are created by small businesses. So that was the highlight. And then we had the first report actually from the Economic Development ADO. Don Goldberg was here, and he talked about what their strategy is, and this is the document they're working on. It is called Regional Economic Partnership, and he gave us an overview. They're working on it, and he promised that he will be coming every quarter to update the council on the progress on that. So that's it.
Public Works.
We had an update from Point Roberts on the solid waste system up there, and what ideas they would like to see considered in the future. And we had that one thing.
Planning and Development.
We had a good presentation from Mark Personis on the planning department and kind of what they're going through in order to optimize the code. We've heard a lot from the community over a long period of time now about how difficult it is to kind of get through the permitting process regardless of the type of project and how expensive it is. I was actually really impressed because I like the approach that he's taking and how he's talking to both internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders within the community to figure out what those bottlenecks are and how to optimize them, and really looking at it from more of like a customer standpoint and a customer satisfaction standpoint. All in all, I think that what they're doing there is really impressive, and although the payoffs might not be tomorrow, the long-term benefits I think we're all going to enjoy and be pretty happy with. So it was a good presentation.
All right, other items? Council member updates. Brenner? Mr. Bird?
I'm happy the sun and the long days are back. Thank you.
But I don't like the changeover stuff.
Are you proposing a
Doing
resolution?
my way.
You're proposing a resolution to that effect?
Do you keep long days in the sun?
Fine, but get rid of that daylight savings and then back to fall back, I don't know.
Mr. Sadoo?
Something.
No, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing.
I just want to add one little observation. I had the very interesting experience of touring one of Amazon's newest warehouses. I'll give you a couple of interesting data points. It's the size of 23 football fields, number one. This is down in Kent, Washington. They have 2,000 full-time employees who work 500 employees split across 4 shifts. At the same time as those 500 employees are working at any one time, they have 6,000 robots. And the person stands at a picking or put away station, stands there, and the robot brings the inventory to the person. It's quite amazing, and it's inside an enclosed area, and you watch these robots dance back and forth like in a ballet. The other 2 comments is the reason you have 15 minutes to cancel an order is because when you place your order with Amazon, it's actually on the truck on the 16th minute. It's already been boxed up and labelled.
That's what they're telling.
Well, no, I mean for them, it's physically there. You can see we watched the whole process. It's 15 minutes, right? 15 to 30 minutes, depending on what it is. And then the final thing is, what I felt was most interesting was, if you bring a new idea to your boss, it is automatically improved unless your boss can give you a reason not to do it. As opposed to the way almost every other business I know operates on the principle of the boss has to approve it in order for it to advance. In Amazon, it's automatically approved unless you can come up with an objection.
That's interesting.
It is. It's very interesting. So it's culturally very different to anything I've ever operated under. Ms. Brenner?
Stay tuned. Pretty soon it's going to be robot council members. That's coming.
I was,
Staff.
Yeah.
No, not that
Who
staff.
programs them?
Our individual staff.
I was at a hotel in New York,
Yeah.
and
one behind you.
room service was a robot. It brought it to your room, and a robot delivered it in a warmer, and the hood opened up, and it was like warm. Steam came out, and it was like you took your meal
See?
out, and it was like.
We're next.
It was cool. We're next.
Do you have a reset button, by the way?
Actually, I don't, which is why you should appreciate me. Yeah.
All right, if there's no further business, we are adjourned. Thank you.